All right, hey traders, TG Watkins here. Let's get everything up and running in just one moment. And so yeah, welcome. Remember we got a hair, man. Remember that we got FOMC today. So, whatever we kind of do and talk about today, it might be a moot point because we're waiting for the big reveal of whatever the FOMC and Jerome Powell are going to say. Now, I think the consensus is that we're looking at about a 25 basis point rate hike. So we're going to have to see how that goes over with the market. The theory in the conversation is like, well, pretty much 50 basis points is just out the window. And if they pause, that could be signaling worse things. The fact that if we're going to be pausing, that's going to be way more problematic for the market than anything else. And so to try and keep on with the 25 basis point rate hike, then they're going to say, okay, we're still tackling inflation and the bank thing is under control and we've got this covered. So I think that's kind of the idea behind what's going on with that. And remember, if you guys are new to me or out there in the metaverse, basically, then let me know if you're interested looking at how I trade stocks and how I talk about stuff. You can get a $7 trial for 30 days. And you can come in and check out what the Moxie room looks like. And if you guys like the Moxie indicator and how I show it, it's available on TradingView, Thinkorswim, and stock charts. All right, so let's get this moving. And again, computer is slow. Come on. All right, there you go. So a couple things we're going to be looking at. The market has been pretty robust. I got to say, it has been holding up very well considering what has been going on out there. And one thing that I've been looking at is we've been seeing that we've had this downtrending trend line, and you can see that price finally broke over it, and now it pulled back into it. The thing about this is it's basically the same idea concept with moving averages that oftentimes I talk about the first move, second move. I want to see price get back on top of a moving average and test it for support. We're seeing the same thing about this trend line. And if you look at the semis back in the day, you could see the semis did the same thing. And now where are they? You can see here it was following this lower trend line, broke out, and then tested it, and now it's been up pretty nicely. So we're going to see what we can do about this, going forward, and if the SPY is actually going to hold that. We can see a similar thing with the Dow. Let me kind of zoom in on this one, and you can see that we've got this trend line. It broke out from that trend line, and then amazingly, it tested it twice. So there's once, and now here's twice, and we're going to have to see if that actually is a thing. But the fact that it's now on top of this trend line seems pretty interesting. And then I think let's see, Nasdaq Nasdaq is over the trend line also, hasn't gone back and tested it, but it is over it. So that's another thing. You can see we've at least kind of broken out of this downtrending trend line, and the markets are more neutral. So I think we can clearly say that it's neutral. We're trying to determine if it's actually still in an uptrend at this point. And if you look at the IWM, let me extend this to the right, you can see the IWM did the same thing. We've got this trend line, finally broke out from that trend line, and now here it is testing the trend line. So pretty interesting situations for most of these indexes. Thanks, Mirza, appreciate it. Now, the other thing that I've been kind of showing and talking about is this thing. So this is, a lot of people have been talking about the yield curve inversion and the recession and bear market and a lot of other things. And some corners have been talking about how this might have been a correction and that we have maybe not even actually been in a bear market. Like we might not have actually been, this may not be the real deal yet. We haven't seen this or this yet is kind of what they're talking about. And so the idea behind that is with the yield curve inversion, the recession or the real problem with the market doesn't tend to happen until the yield curve uninverts, until it starts going the other direction up and until it gets over zero. So you can see we had a little blip there in 2019, 2020, and we're still inverted. So that's kind of the thing. If anybody's talking to you guys about this and looking for what timing, like when is this stuff going to happen? Well, I would keep an eye on the yield curve inversion going uninverted and getting closer to zero. I've also just kind of made an observation that that tends to have something to do with when you can see interest rates. And of course, this makes sense because, as the Fed starts to raise interest rates, they're trying to take the punch bowl away from the party. They're trying to actually slow things down. And so the risk shifts. The risk is now in the near term. And so this is how you get the, 2-year paying more than the 10-year. And this is how you get the yield curve inverted. So it would make sense that as interest rates are paused and then reversed, it kind of changes the dynamics. And so interesting to see that. Now, today being the FOMC day, and we'll have to see what they do about the interest rate hike and the Q&A session, because remember, it's a lot about what does Jerome Powell say and how does he guide the market and the economy. And we can see that we're still moving up. And if today we're going to move up another 25 basis points, this line is still moving up. It hasn't flattened out yet. And so the yield curve hasn't necessarily uninverted yet. And so keep that in mind. Watch for when we pause or we start changing directions as far as the interest rate hikes or reverses, pivots, that kind of stuff. So something to just kind of get out there and realize, talk about, and whatnot. All right, so then we have that. And then another interesting thing, I'm going to be diving, well, let me get over to one thing. We had FS, you were asking about VLO. Okay, so this is in the energy oil sector. And I always like to look at the higher time frames first, which that go. Now let's see. There we go. Computer's just being a little bit slow when I get all these things up and running. So if we look at VLO, I've been noticing, so XLE, XOP, USO, they haven't been doing great. Energy has been going down. And this is another thing. We talk about interest rates and yield curves and all this kind of stuff. When oil and energy finally starts to top and roll over, that also kind of precedes a recession. That says that the market can sniff out that there is lower demand, dwindling consumption, and that is usually a sign of a recession because the economy is slowing down. So, whatever knock-on effects we are seeing from, say, sectors like this starting to go down, okay, let's be aware of it and see what happens. For VLO, what are we noticing? Basically, there's a top here. There's an area where price just can't get any higher. I'm also noticing that there's some negative divergence. Now, it's not totally perfect yet, but I have noticed that XLE and XOP are further down and further on their way to declining. You guys also know that I like to look at the monthly 10. You can see when price gets below the monthly 10 and below the monthly 10, that is a downtrend. And when it finally gets over the monthly 10 and can hold the monthly 10, that's an uptrend. And not much yet, at least for VLO. There's not much yet. But watch and see if that's going to be a thing at some point. Now, if we come back over here and we look at here the daily and hourly, what are we noticing? Well, basically, here's higher price. Notice we had lower Moxie indicator. So again, prices moving up on less energy, that's negative divergence. That's not great if you're bullish. And then the next thing we could note that is as price went sideways, the Moxie indicator fired down, which means that the indicator went from positive momentum to negative momentum, which is what helped put price now underneath the daily 50. Okay, so now that price is underneath the daily 50, look what's happening now. We're getting a bounce up into the underside of the daily 50. So FS, if you're looking at something like this, if you're bullish or bearish, just be aware that this could be an area where there could be some resistance. And if we look at the hourly chart, we've got a 50 to 150 maneuver going on here. So I would generally view something around where price is currently to probably be the top of whatever this bounce is and likely to pull back. Now the question is the pullback going to be into strength or is it going to be into weakness? If this is in fact going to start moving down and be bearish like the rest of the energy and oil sector, then this would be about roughly the best place to short because it's bouncing up into the daily 50, it's bouncing up into the 200, and you can then price would start moving down like that. Now, if you think it's bullish, then basically this is the first bounce, then you get a pullback to retest support, and then it will go higher. So that's kind of the thing to be looking for based on if you're bullish or bearish. Now let me show you guys XLE, and then maybe this will help you decide if you think something like VLO is going to be bullish. So here's XLE. And XOP looks very similar too. In fact, XOP is even further along in this direction. So again, notice the monthly 10, notice the monthly 10, and where are we at? Crossing the monthly 10. You can also see we had this level, price could not get higher, again with the negative divergence, and you can see the Moxie indicator is awfully close to getting to crossing below the 0 line. You can also see that price is now below the weekly 50. And then if we look here on the lower time frames, and this perfectly shows exactly what I was talking about with VLO. So remember with VLO, we had a bounce. Where was the bounce? The bounce was into the underside of the daily 50. And where was the bounce on VLO? It was also into the hourly 200. This is why I said that roughly around this area, I would be expecting the end of the bounce and price to start rolling over. Because if you look at XLE compared to VLO, they look exactly the same, just that VLO is a few steps behind XLE. So, and remember, if I said that if this was a pullback into weakness, price would continue to go down because it came up here, bounced, hit resistance, came down, could not hold support, and continued to go lower. If it were going to be bullish, then I would expect price, to get rejected there, come down, hold support, and then move up. So those were the plans. That's what I can show you guys how things work or whatever. And in this case, it didn't hold, so it continued to move down. But the point is that here and here at the daily 50 and the hourly 200 were both areas of resistance that likely VLO is going to be doing the same thing. And if we look at, let's see, XOP, since it's further along, look at XOP. You can see it is definitely underneath the monthly 10. And the monthly 10 is starting to turn down. If you look at the weekly chart, notice double top, negative divergence, and now you do have the Moxie indicator firing to the downside, and you do have price significantly lower. Then we come over here back to the daily and hourly chart, and you can see all of this. You had price trying to push up against a downtrending daily 50 with the Moxie indicator below 0. So again, any of these moves, any of these bounces, like if you were trading in through here, this is the whole point of the Moxie indicator. It helps keep you on the right side of the trade. Because even though you might be looking at this from a price standpoint, you're like, hey, look, price managed to get back over the daily 50. It's bullish. Let's go. The Moxie indicator would be keeping you safe and telling you otherwise. The Moxie indicator is like, I'm still below 0. You should not be up there. So that helps you recognize, like, don't go long. Like, that's not going to work. And then you can see price finally just rolled over, and you can see there's your Moxie price trigger giving you the right signal on the hourly chart. So FS, hopefully that kind of gives you a better understanding of what I'm looking at for VLO and the whole sector. So if you think VLO can fight XOP and whatnot, then great. But I've kind of shown you what I think is where things are going. ExxonMobil, same kind of deal. Yes, it got oversold, bounced a little bit, but does this look like it's in an uptrend? Yeah, not exactly. And you can even see here, there's a double top and negative divergence right there. And there was an inverse trampoline move on the hourly chart. So it's all right there for you. Everything you can just take in for you. And there's the Moxie indicator working for you. All right, so yeah, no problem. One other thing that I wanted to look at, and I will be doing more of a deep dive in my next session with you all, so Moxie Group and Simpler Trading, we're going to be in the options room. But what I wanted to kind of just put out there as a little bit of a teaser that I find interesting. Let me start off with ARK. And I know that ARK has an aura about them, good or bad, and Kathy Wood and stuff like that. So very divisive, or people have strong opinions. Okay, but let's just look at the charts. What I find interesting is that there is a crap ton of volume coming into this. I mean, this is a ton of volume. Now, is it everybody leaving? Maybe not. I don't think so. In fact, I heard a stat that said sometime last week, like Tuesday last week, was the largest inflow of money into this fund since like April 2021. And you could see the monthly chart represented that. And you could see that there was a spike of volume that came into this. Now, are they right or are they wrong? Well, we don't exactly know yet. We won't know until price actually starts going one way or the other. But what I can tell you is that this looks like this thing is trying to be finished going down. It's looking like it's trying to put in a floor. And you can see here you've got price trying to get over the monthly 10 and all that kind of stuff. Now, if we come over here on the daily chart, the other thing I'm seeing, and this is where we'll do the deep dive in the next section, is we've got price here below an uptrending daily 50 with the Moxie indicator above 0. I'm seeing this in Amazon, Google, Tesla. I mean, FNGU. I mean, there are a lot of tickers that are starting to look exactly like this. Bitcoin, Riot, and they're all up. So seeing some common themes going on here. And again, yeah, I know it's ARK. So just kind of keep it in mind. If the bottom of the barrel is not going down anymore, it might be saying something. FNGU. This is basically the leverage ETF of the FANG stocks. And again, does this thing look like it's going down right now? No. And the other interesting thing is look at the volume. Where was the volume coming in? The peak of the volume was at the bottom. I find that to be very interesting. Now, again, we're going to need more time to figure out if this is in fact true, but these are some things out there that we might want to be paying attention to. So anybody out there, watching me on Facebook and YouTube and stuff, and, just kind of keeping some open mind, okay? I put out a webinar back on March 1st, bullish, bearish, like the most hotly contested market condition. And, there are a lot of things, like I just showed you the yield curves and all that kind of stuff. There are a lot of stuff that are indicating that the market should definitely be rolling over. But some of these things look like they're not, and they already look like they've been repriced. So SOXL has this. You want to see some interesting volume stuff? Look here. There was the peak of volume. That was the low. How about this? Here's the peak of volume, and so far it's been on the low. And now we're back up. So it's interesting to see if this is what's going on here. Now, the other thing, and I don't know if somebody could answer this for me, because I've been asking around. I've even been asking our traders. I've been asking everybody I know. It seems that there is way more volume coming into these kind of ETFs. I know they're leverage ETFs, maybe they're kind of small comparatively, but there is way more volume coming into these things now than there ever has been. And another way to look at that, look at YINN. Thunderfin, if you're out there, you'll probably love this. So look at YINN. This is a massive amount of volume comparatively. Now, granted, for the last few years, there hasn't really been doing anything. It's been in a downtrend, so of course, not much going on there. But interesting to see that there is just a ton of volume starting to come into this. And what do we always say? Like when we're starting to learn how to trade stocks, and we're new to the market, what do we always talk about? What do the books say? They say, we are just little fish. There's nothing we can do to affect the market. We need to follow the footprints of the giant elephant traders and institutions out there. And we say, follow the volume. What does this look like? What does this look like? It looks like price doesn't really want to go down too much further. It still can, but it doesn't look like it wants to go too much further. And what's happening? A massive amount of volume is starting to come into these things on a consistent basis. So I think we should be aware of that. The other interesting thing, look at this. Where was the peak? Right there at the bottom. Very interesting, isn't it? Yeah, so Austin, same thing. So let's see, Oatly. Yeah, I've been watching these things too. So Oatly, Oatly's gotten repriced. Oatly came out at a bad time in the market and promptly just got demolished. Now, what are we starting to see on names like Oatly? Well, we're starting to see reversals, aren't we? Because what we were looking at is down, 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 down. And now what are we seeing? We're actually seeing higher lows. And you know what? Look at that volume. Now, I don't know if that was maybe options expiry. Maybe that's kind of why we saw a big spike, options expiry. But it is interesting to note significant volume coming into there. Yeah, Oatly was one. TTD, how's that one looking? I haven't looked at that in a while. Yeah, this kind of looks like the NASDAQ, honestly. You can see there's a double bottom, and it's trying to recover. Whereas before, you could see it was getting stuck underneath the 50 and stuck underneath the 10, but now it's over, and now it's over. So unless some giant trapdoor is going to open up on the market, these things look like they're really trying to repair themselves. Snapchat, boy, I haven't looked at that one in a long time. All right, I'll have to add Snapchat to my Pinterest example because this looks a lot like Pinterest. This goes along with the example of these names have been so hammered and so repriced that they're just they're already repriced. They are it seems unlikely a name like this is going to go much lower unless they filed for bankruptcy. It seems like this thing is as low as it's probably going to go. And so now the question is, are they going to be able to start moving up? Now, they don't have to. They can hibernate for a long time. I mean, look at this. How long, how many months has Snapchat been going sideways? So just because it's done going down does not necessarily mean it's going to be a rip-roaring name to the upside. It could just stay hibernating. So just be aware of that. So Snapchat and then PLTR. That one's looking better. I've been kind of keeping an eye on this one too. So look, it's getting pretty tight and coiled in there. And what do we have? High or low. So yeah, it does seem like there's potential and possibilities, but the timing, like when is this going to happen? When is this going to happen? It's going to happen when the Fed pivots, but then the whole conversation of is the Fed pivoting because something bad is happening, and they need to prop the economy up. That's one idea and one conversation. So we'll just have to see. This is kind of the game that we've been playing for a few months with this stuff. FS, honestly, no, nobody's really chipping in on this whole volume situation. I just keep talking about it. Like I think RETL, this is one. Now look, RETL, not going anywhere. It doesn't seem like it's going down any further, but it's also not going up. But I will say, look, volume, and you can also see back here. Look at the volume. Where was it? The volume was at the low. Maybe the volume was at the low. It's very fascinating. You look at want, look at this one. Now, maybe not perfect, because you can see there was volume here, and yes, price went lower. But again, there's more volume. And you can see back here, where was the volume? At the low. And you could see it continued right there, too. So, yeah, a lot of volume. A lot of volume coming into these things. Jerry, if TikTok is outlawed in the US, would Snapchat, Meta be big winners? I don't know. I'd have to just kind of speculate. The other thing is, I've heard that maybe TikTok won't be outlawed. I've heard that people in charge of Congress or whatever who are doing this, that maybe they're not going to ban TikTok, but TikTok has to be purchased by an American company. So, so just be aware of that. It may not happen the way you think it's going to happen. To TikTok gone, and so Snapchat explodes. It could actually be that maybe somebody buys TikTok. So it could be a moot point. Just kind of keep an eye out for that one and see if anything happens like that. All right, guys. Well, that's pretty much what I had and through here. I just wanted to talk about some of these things and show you what I'm seeing with these leveraged ETFs. Again, if you guys are new to me and haven't seen me before, then come on over to. Oh, of course, doesn't want to load. There we go. There we go. Come over to simplertrading.com and you guys can check out more about me and $7 trial for 30 days. Other than that, we've got FOMC today, so buckle your seatbelts and let's see what the market has to say about it. All right, everyone, take care. And we'll